Hello and welcome to Narayana IAS. My name is Abhijit Srivastava and we are here to discuss daily news analysis for 6 February 2024. So all the important articles from The Hindu and Indian Express will be discussed here. So let's quickly review all the important articles that we are going to discuss. First is from page number 2 of The Hindu Delhi edition, which talks about people dying about treatment, ramp up health facilities, High Court, along with 3 important articles. All of them are discussing one important issue, that is healthcare system in India. So what are the challenges and what could be the solution for these challenges will be discussed. Second is Myanmar's civil war. So currently Myanmar is grappling with civil war and what could be social, economic and political implications on India will be discussed. Third is from page number 11 of The Hindu. It talks about rigid statutory fiscal targets are getting discredited globally. So this article is focusing on fiscal targets and FRBM. That stands for Fiscal, Regulatory and Budget Management Act and Guidelines. Next article is from page number 1, The Indian Express, which talks about Do Exam Throttle India's Education System, the Big All India Exam Leak. So how examination system in India is affecting our students, our society at large, right? So that will be discussed here, whether these examination system are futile and or is there any functional importance of these examination system will be discussed here. And the last article is from page number 1, Indian Express, Supreme Court, murder of democracy, prosecute returning officer. So there is a misconduct by returning officer during Chandigarh mayor election, and that we will discuss all its dimensions, including various legal dimensions. So these are the articles, important articles that we will discuss. After that, we'll also discuss preliminary and mains related questions related to all these articles. So let's start our discussion. So the first article for today's discussion is People Dying Without Treatment, Ramp Up Health Facilities, High Court. This article talks about dismal picture of healthcare system in India. And not just this article, there are a lot of articles in today's The Hindu newspaper which are discussing or which are focusing on healthcare sector, healthcare system in India. Before going deeper into this, let's understand the health or importance of health in our life. There is a Sanskrit slok which may be helpful for you in your essay paper, that is Ayu, Bal, Sattva, Arogya, Sukh, Preeti, Samvardhana. This slok talks about 4 elements of a good health. What are those 4 elements? First is Ayu, that is longevity. Second is Bal, that is physical health or good physical health. Sattva, which means good mental health, and Arogya, that means free from diseases. And if you have all these 4 elements, then you will be able to achieve Sukh, that is happiness, and Preeti, that is good relation. And eventually, all these things will be helpful in achieving or realizing full potential in your life. So this is important. This health is important for us in our life. Nevertheless, when we talk about healthcare sector in India or healthcare system in India, we can break healthcare system into 5 basic elements. First is public health management. What is public health management? It's a strategic planning and organizing, coordination and implementation of schemes, policies or intervention to improve the healthcare system in India or healthcare system in a population, and to protect population from any kind of disease or any kind of epidemics. Second is primary health. Primary health is a first level of healthcare system, or you can say it's a first point of contact between individual and healthcare system. Third is health resources. All the resources, whether human or any infrastructural resource, which is involved in providing healthcare services, comes under health resources, right? Fourth is universal coverage. So if all individuals and communities are getting quality health services without compromising or without suffering any financial burden, so that is universal health coverage. And last is nutrition. So providing balanced diet, providing essential nutrients comes under nutrition. So these are the 5 basic pillars of healthcare services. Why this is important for our UPSC exam? In GS paper 2, there is a topic issues relating to development and management of social sector services relating to health. So there is a topic which is mentioning health, and that is why it's important for UPSC exam. There's another topic, issues relating to poverty and hunger. Hunger has a dimension that is called as hidden hunger. So if you are giving diet to people, if you are giving food to people, and even after giving these food, people are not getting the essential nutrients, so they are facing hidden hunger, and that is directly related to the nutrition. Okay. In GS paper 3, there is a topic inclusive growth, and which is directly related to the healthcare system in India. These are the articles in today's The Hindu newspaper, and which is directly related to healthcare system, which we are going to discuss here. Let's understand the importance of this whole topic with the help of previous year question. In 2021, UPSC asked this question: besides being a moral imperative of a welfare state, primary health structure is a necessary precondition for sustainable development analysis. So that is why this article or this topic is important for us. Let's understand the context first. Delhi High Court, it observed a very dismal picture of our healthcare system in Delhi, that is capital of our country, and it observed that not just staff vacancies are hurting our healthcare system, but also infrastructural bottlenecks are there, and this inadequate infrastructure is also hurting our health sector, right? This article is also giving one example to substantiate this argument, and they are saying that only 6 CT scan machines are available across all the Delhi government hospitals, which are catering almost 3 crore residents, right? What are CT scan machines? CT stands for computed tomography, and which are helpful in taking detailed images of several body parts, right? And that is why Delhi High Court is asking to revamp the health facilities, especially in Delhi, but we can extrapolate to other parts of the country as well. To revamp the healthcare system in India, we need to revamp different elements of healthcare system. So the first is public health management and action. 2020, we witnessed Corona, and at that time, we did not have any such body to which we can fix accountability, firstly. Secondly, there were no such body in any states of India which legally enforce any kind of public action or any kind of health facility in India, right? So there was issue of accountability in our public health system. Secondly, when you look at the public health system in India, we are more focusing on curating the disease. We are not focusing on the prevention of disease. if at all we have a public health management system in our states, it will be focusing on prevention as, because it's a unified structure that we can see under public health management. Also, some states have population health management systems, but these population health management systems are staffed by doctors itself. These doctors are not highly trained for public health management. They are not highly trained for issues and causes of different kinds of healthcare emergencies in our society, right? So we need such type of professionals which can cater public health management in India. That is why Niti Aayog, in one of its report, India at 75, talks about public health cadre for each state, right? So what is needed here? We need integrated, intersectoral, pan-stakeholder approach. We need to bring public health cadre for each state, right? So that they can understand the public issues, public health issues in totality, and they can take actions in timely manner, right? Also, we need to operationalize the enablers. And a very good example for this operationalizing enablers is Panchayati Raj. One study conducted by RBI named as Finances of Panchayati Raj Institutions in India. And this article argues that the states which are performing very good in devolution of power to Panchayati Raj institutions are also the states which are showing good improvement in health sector. So this article is arguing that if we empower our Panchayati Raj institution, it will definitely affect, or it will definitely improve the health situation in India. There is a direct correlation between empowerment of Panchayati Raj institution with health sector in India. And these Panchayati Raj institutions are working as enablers for healthcare system in India. And that is why we need to operationalize these enablers, right? Next is primary health are important to prevent the diseases, because these are the interface between individuals and the health sector in India. So that is why these primary healthcare systems are important to prevent the diseases. Firstly, this primary health sector preempts the secondary and tertiary healthcare system in India, right? So that is why we need to revamp the primary health sector in India. And there are a lot of successful attempts by our central government. For example, there are health and wellness center under Ayushman Bharat initiatives, right? But still, these primary healthcare centers are more focusing on only on maternal health. That is why we need to revamp our primary healthcare system that is more focusing on prevention of diseases and non-communicable diseases, right? Next is human resources. According to Health Ministry, doctor is to population ratio in India is 1:1613, and nurses versus population ratio is 1:588. But as per WHO recommendation, it should be 1:1000 and 1:400. So that is why we need to revamp the human resources or health resources as well. How we can do this? Firstly, we need to increase the human resources, skilled professionals, specifically doctors, nurses, and paramedics. This article is also talking about the human resources as well as infrastructural facilities. Because as we have seen, only 6 CT scans are catering 3 crore population. And that is why we need to focus more upon the infrastructural facilities. These infrastructure facilities are inadequate to cater our population. Next element is universal coverage. There is a concept out of pocket expenditure. If we do not provide universal coverage of health facility to our population, it is increasing out of pocket expenditure for India. What are out of pocket expenditure? When the health expenditure is borne out by patients itself, which are not covered under any insurance scheme, that is called as out of pocket expenditure. And this is almost 60% for India, right? So 60% expenditure are borne out by pockets of the people itself, right? And if we are not providing universal health coverage, it is increasing, right? This out of pocket expenditure is increasing. And this is creating a vicious cycle for poverty as well, right? There are two major reasons for that. First is private sector dominance. In secondary and tertiary health sector, private sector dominates. This is the first reason. And second reason is insurance coverage. A very less population is covered under any kind of insurance. This article talks about the universal coverage of health sector in India and argues that universal coverage is imperative for Viksit Bharat and reaping demographic dividend in India. How? So this article is giving an example of artificial intelligence, how we can utilize artificial intelligence in providing universal health coverage to our population. So artificial intelligence can be helpful in understanding the population, its vulnerability, kinds of diseases that they can face, and lastly, how we can give insurance coverage to the population is also be done by artificial intelligence or with the help of artificial intelligence. Last is nutrition. According to National Family Health Survey 5, almost 15% of our population are not getting nutritional food. Almost 19% under 5 children are wasted, and almost 36% of under 5 children are stunted. The basic reason behind malnutrition in a society is recognized as lack of women empowerment. So if we are encouraging women empowerment, we'll definitely see improvement in the nutritional status of the society. And in this article, the author is arguing that Uttar Pradesh can be seen as a role model or can be seen as a case study in which they are focusing on women empowerment and they are witnessing good improvement in their nutritional status. How? So they are creating community-based micro enterprises that are led by self-help groups. And these self-help groups driven community-based micro enterprises, they are providing nutritional foods to the population. Earlier, it was centralized approach. Government was providing nutritional food, fortified foods to the population. But now, these foods, these type of nutritional foods are being given by community-based micro enterprises, which are led by SHG, specifically women SHGs, right? So through which they are giving two kinds of solution. First is they are giving employment opportunity to the women. That is how they are improving women's economic status. Also, through these enterprises or micro enterprises, they are providing nutritious food to the women, nutritious food to the children, right? So through these two processes, they are empowering, encouraging women, and now they are witnessing good improvement in the overall nutritional status of the state, right? So now we can understand, if we have to revamp the health sector in India, we have to work upon these 5 elements of healthcare sector. Next article is Myanmar's civil war and India's interest. Whenever there is a humanitarian crisis, specifically any war or ethnic clashes in the India's neighborhood region, it is affecting India in 3 ways. One is social. How people in these regions are migrating towards India because India is more safer place than these regions, right? And when people are migrating towards India, it is affecting demographic structure in India or Indian states, right? And eventually these demographic changes or changes in these demographic structure is also creating civil unrest in India. Okay. Second is economic. India has heavily invested in its neighborhood region. And if at all there is a ethnic crisis or any war or ethnic clashes is happening, then it is affecting India's economic interest in the region. Also, India day by day is increasing its bilateral economic relation. So in case of any ethnic clashes, India is witnessing decline in the economic partnership with that country. Also, there is a political impact as well. How? It has been observed that China is involved in such type of clashes. And in that case, when China is involved, China is supporting that faction or that regime which is undemocratic in nature. And that is how it is affecting India's political interest in this region as well. How it is important for our UPSC exam. Places in news can be asked in prelims examination. Also in GS paper 2, there is a topic India and its neighborhood. Nowadays, UPSC is more keen towards or more interested in asking multidisciplinary questions. So now they are clubbing international relation with the internal security and they are asking question. For example, in 2019, UPSC asked this question: cross-border movement of insurgents is only one of the several security challenges facing the policing of the border in Northeast India. Examine the various challenges currently emanating across India-Myanmar border. Also, discuss the steps to counter the challenges. So, what are the states which are sharing border with the Myanmar? One is Arunachal Pradesh, another is Nagaland, third is Manipur, and lastly, Mizoram. So, these are the 4 states which are sharing border with the Myanmar. Let's understand the context first. 2021. Before that, military was ruling in Myanmar. 2021, Myanmar army or military in Myanmar, they agreed to conduct democratic election. And after conducting this democratic election, Aung San Suu Kyi, she came into power. But in 2021 itself, military tried a coup and they replaced this democratic government, right? And now again military is ruling over Myanmar, right? This military rule is also known as Tatma Dao or military junta. This military regime was opposed by various ethnic groups. And now all these ethnic groups are creating their own armed military, right? And now all these ethnic groups are in conflict with each other, along with conflict with military rule of Myanmar, right? So this is how this military coup is creating political instability in Myanmar. This political instability is also the genesis of ethnic unrest in the Myanmar. Recently, what has happened? The Arakan army of the Rakhine state. So there are multiple states in Myanmar. One state is Rakhine, and Arakan army, this is the ethnic group, and they tried and they captured Palitwa region of Chin state. So there are two states, there are two ethnic groups, and one ethnic group tried and captured one particular region of the Chin state. And it is again creating the humanitarian crisis in the Myanmar region. So we have already seen 2021, Tatmadaw, that is military rule, tried to coup and they captured the political power in Myanmar, right? This political capture is creating ethnic clashes and armed ethnic clashes in the Myanmar region. Recently, the Arakan army, it captured Paletwa region of Chin state, right? The biggest issue is China is supporting this Arakan army, right? So this tension between Chin and Arakan ethnic groups has a Chinese angle as well, right? This inter-ethnic conflict is also creating challenges in cooperating between these groups. So we need inclusive governance in Myanmar so that a political stability can be created, a democratic setup can be created, for which we need ethnic cooperation, inter-ethnic cooperation. But these kinds of events are against any kind of ethnic or inter-ethnic cooperations, and this is creating challenges. As we have already seen, these kind of war or ethnic clashes are creating three kinds of challenges for India. First is social, because people are migrating to Indian states because of instability in the region. So it is creating social unrest in India as well. It is changing India's demographic structure or demographic structure of particular states. Apart from that, when we look at the economic interest of India, there is an important infrastructural project which is being stalled because of these conflicts, which is Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. It's a multimodal project. That means it is including railway, roads, and waterways. Also, it is important for India because it is integrating northeast region of India with the mainland through Myanmar. Okay. One more challenge is that Arakan army is opposing this Kaladan multimodal transit project, right? And if they are getting power day by day, it will hamper India's economic interest in the region, right? As far as political interest is concerned, China has its role and involvement in these kind of conflicts and clashes because China is directly supporting Arakan army and other ethnic armed organizations. So India is getting affected socially, economically, and politically because of these clashes, and China has direct role in these clashes. So let's understand the Myanmar civil war. What is civil war? It's kind of prolonged conflict within country involving various factions of the country or various factions of the society. As we have already seen that it all started with the military coup in 2021, which is ousted Aung San Suu Kyi. People demanded for democracy, and in this demand, or while this demand, people are creating ethnic groups, and these ethnic groups are raising their voices along with armed forces, right? And this is how it creates refugee crisis in this region, right? What is India's stand? India always wanted peaceful neighborhood, and that is why it always supported for self-rule, democratic government in its neighborhood. But in case of Myanmar, because India's northeast or northeastern states are at stake, because most of the northeastern states are sharing border with Myanmar, also we have cultural relation with Myanmar, India did not take any stand on military coup, right? But because of these ethnic conflicts, India's interest in these regions are at stake. And now India is urging Myanmar to have peace in the region, right? Also, India's major infrastructural projects such as IMT, India Myanmar Thailand Trilateral Highway, is being stalled because of these conflicts. And that is why India wanted a peaceful settlement in this region. What could be the potential impact on Indian Myanmar ties? In 2021, India cancelled a number of infrastructural projects because of this military coup. India has also been reluctant to provide military assistance to Janta, and the influx of Myanmarese refugees has sustained relation between India and Myanmar. What are the areas or key areas of cooperation between India and Myanmar? First is economy and trade. India still have almost $1.8 billion worth bilateral economic relationship with Myanmar. India is exporting steel, majorly steel and pharmaceuticals, and importing agricultural based products from Myanmar. As far as connectivity is concerned, India, Myanmar, Thailand Trilateral Highway plus Kaladan multi-modal project is at stake. As far as defense cooperation, IMBEX is being conducted between India and Myanmar military. There are a lot of humanitarian assistance and disaster relief was provided by India to Myanmar. Also, there are a lot of multilateral cooperation or multilateral platform in which India and Myanmar is cooperating with each other, such as BIMSTEC and SAARC Free Trade Agreement with India. So all these things will be at stake if these conflicts will persist in future. Next article is rigid statutory fiscal targets are getting discredited globally. This article talks about two important terms, fiscal policy and fiscal targets. What is fiscal policy? The mechanism through which government is controlling the economy or steering the vehicle of economy, right? So this is fiscal policy. For example, economy runs over demand supply game. So there is a demand supply game, right? And this demand is created because of consumption, investment, government spending, and export minus import, right? This government spending plays a very important role in creating the demands in the economy, right? And through which government is steering the wheel of economy. For example, how much government is spending on a social sector initiative, how much government is taxing for its own revenue. So all these things will be covered under fiscal policy, right? Fiscal targets is specifically to fiscal deficit and other forms of deficit. For example, government is borrowing something to spend somewhere. For example, on health expenditure, government is borrowing, right? So these borrowings will come under fiscal deficit. And what should be the amount of this fiscal deficit or some other deficit? This comes under fiscal targets, right? There are two types of perceptions regarding fiscal targets. One is rigid, another is flexible. Some economists are in support of rigid fiscal targets. They are claiming that government should adhere to fixed fiscal targets because these government spendings can affect the economic cycle. And if economic cycles are getting affected regularly by the governments, it will hamper the macroeconomic stability of the economy, right? Some people are arguing that government should follow flexible fiscal targets depending upon the situation. And both are correct at some point of time. We'll discuss how. Why this is important for UPSC exam? Firstly, for prelims, because in prelims, UPSC is more keen towards or interested in asking trends. So fiscal trends, fiscal targets trends. So these are important from prelims point of view. And in mains, FRBM stands for Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Guidelines, right? So from mains point of view, how these FRBM guidelines are affecting Indian economy is important. How it is affecting resources, growth, development, and specifically employment, right? So let's understand the context first. The finance secretary, he is in favor of flexible fiscal targets, and he noted that rigid and statutory fiscal targets are getting discredited globally. What is fiscal policy? We have already seen. Fiscal policy is the government's strategic calibration of its expenditure and revenue to steer the economy. Basically, it's navigating the economy. It's a powerful tool designed to navigate the economy. Thus, fiscal policy has a strong impact on aggregate demand, employment, inflation, and growth. So these four things are important. Aggregate demand. If demand is increasing, it will definitely increase the inflation as well as growth because of demand supply curve, right? And if growth is increasing, so it will increase the employment as well, right? There are two basic types of fiscal policy. One is expansionary and another is contractionary. Expansionary means government is spending more just to increase the economic activities. Contractionary is government is not spending more. In fact, government is decreasing its spending or increasing the taxes so that economic activities can be reduced. Or both of these fiscal policies are being used by government at some point of time. How? There is an economic cycle. Sometimes economy is in boom phase, sometimes economy is in burst phase. But for a stable economic development, we need less volatility in economic cycles. So if economy is booming, government tries to reduce it down. When economy is bursting or in its burst phase, government is trying to improve its situation. This is also known as counter-cyclic method. So these are counter-cyclic method. These counter-cyclic methods are policy which is counteracting against the economic cycle. So if economy is in boom phase, government is trying to reduce it down to stable level. If economy is in burst phase, government is trying to uplift it towards the stable level, right? So expansionary and contractionary, there are two types of fiscal policy. During expansionary fiscal policy, government increases its spending, it decreases its tax rates, demands is increasing because we have seen C plus G plus I plus X minus M, right? So if government spending is increasing, it will definitely increase the demand. Output is increasing and employment is increasing because of this government expenditure. For example, recently government has increased the budget in MG Narega scheme, right? If government is increasing its expenditure in this Manrega scheme, it will increase the employment opportunities as well, right? What about during contractionary fiscal policy? Government is decreasing its spending, tax rate is increased, aggregate demand will decrease, and it is having a potential to decrease the output as well. Also, there is a possibility that employment will decrease because of contractionary fiscal policy. Okay. A very significant debate is on the fiscal deficit. What is fiscal deficit? Total borrowings of the government. How it is being defined? The fiscal deficit is a disparity between the government's total expenditure and its revenue excluding borrowing. So whatever government is borrowing is in form of fiscal deficit. It gives a picture about how much the government must borrow to meet its expenses and is usually stated as percentage of the country's GDP. FRBM guidelines is mostly on fiscal deficit and other kinds of deficit. The Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003 was enacted in 2003, and it is providing the FRBM guidelines to the government. FRBM is an act of parliament to institutionalize financial discipline to reduce India's fiscal deficit, improve macroeconomic management, and overall management of the public funds by moving towards a balanced budget, right? The main purpose was to eliminate the revenue deficit, to bring revenue deficit as zero, and to bring the fiscal deficit to 3%. So, what are the recent trends in fiscal deficit and revenue deficit? Last 2 years, it is decreasing, and estimated 2024-25 budget, it is also in decreasing trend. Same with the revenue deficit, primary deficit, and effective revenue deficit. Revenue deficit means expenditure minus revenue receipt minus money given to states for capital expenditure. What about primary deficit? Primary deficit means fiscal deficit minus interest payment. Now comes to this part, why many countries are not able to adhere to fiscal targets. See, basic reason is economic cycles. Sometimes economy is in boom phase, sometimes economy is in recession phase or burst phase, right? So that is why, because of this cyclical nature of economy, governments or countries are not able to adhere with the fiscal targets. For example, pandemic shock. Because of this COVID, because of pandemic, we witnessed a decline in demand. We witnessed a kind of recession in our country or the global scenario. We saw recession, right? To improve the situation, government has to spend more. In that case, most of the government were not able to adhere with the fiscal targets, and they have to spend more for that. So, according to IMF, global government debt reached to 101.7% of GDP in 2023 because of this pandemic shock. Also, sometimes economy is facing slowdown, economy is facing recession, and to overcome this situation or overcome the stagnant economies, government tries to increase its spending and decrease the tax base, right? Sometimes government also spend on infrastructure because of its externalities. Because when we spend on infrastructure, it is increasing the employment opportunity, and it has various forward and backward linkages. And that is how it is improving the economic structure, economic cycles, and economic status. Also, many a times it has been observed that infrastructures are getting aged, and we have to revamp the infrastructure. So that is why governments are spending on infrastructure on a regular basis, and this is also forcing governments to not adhere to the fiscal targets. While taking remedies, government should keep these things in its mind. First is economic context. As we have already seen that government should always follow counter-cyclic policies while considering the fiscal policy, right? Second thing, it has been observed that whenever government is bringing certain actions, or government is performing certain action, or government is bringing some policy or some innovations, its impact is getting delayed for some point of time, or there is a lag, fiscal policy lag. And that is why, while bringing such type of policy, government should anticipate the future conditions, right? Also, government has to understand that because of these government expenditure and borrowings, it is creating crowding out effects. If government is borrowing a lot, net capital available for private organization will be reduced. So that is why this thing should also be kept in mind. Also, regarding equivalence principle, should be taken care of. What is Ricardian equivalence principle? The government should keep in mind that its fiscal policy would have limited impact on the citizens, as they would internalize the policies of the government and make spending decisions accordingly, thereby negating its impact. For example, if I anticipate that tomorrow government will tax more, so I will anticipate this action and I will increase my spending for this, or I will decrease my spending as per the anticipation. So this is called Ricardian equivalence. Next article is, do exams throttle India's education system? See, almost each and every institution in India is having colonial hangover. So that is also being reflected in India's education system. And this article is raising concerns over examination pattern or examination system under this educational system, broader educational system. And it is assessing whether this educational system, or to be very precise, this examination patterns are futile or not, right? So why this is important? It is talking about examination system reforms in the education system, and it's important. In GS paper 2, there's a topic, issues related to development and management of social sector services relating to education and human resources. Let's look into the importance of this topic from UPSC previous year question 2020. UPSC asked this question: National Education Policy 2020 is in conformity with the Sustainable Development Goal for 2030. It intends to restructure and reorient education system in India. Critically examine the statement. Let's understand the context. There is a need for reform measures in the examination system to improve assessment of standards, performance of students, and promote fairness in examination or education, as per this article, right? What are the issues in Indian examination system today? See, we have already seen that Indian educational system has colonial hangover. During British era, they did not have enough capability to upgrade all the students that are there in the primary system or primary education to the secondary or higher education, right? So that is why they brought this examination pattern, so that they can eliminate most of the student to primary education itself, and they could not be promoted to secondary or higher education, right? And this colonial hangover is being carried forward even after independence. So examination system dates back to 19th century. It's a means of elimination rather than selection. Census of India in 1901, only 0.7% of Indians had secondary education. So British government or colonial government neither wanted to upgrade students to higher education, nor they had capability to do so. Also, this examination pattern or these examination patterns or systems are also reflecting inequality in the society, and they are propagating as well. Also, they are creating illusion of equal opportunity. How? As per annual status of education report in 2021, 27% students from rural areas are qualified for higher education, in comparison to which 54% of urban students from urban areas promoted to higher education, which shows a stark inequality between rural and urban regions. Also, 2018 study by UNESCO, it was found out that there is a 20% gap in exam pass rates between students from affluent and disadvantaged background. So there's a clear-cut unscientific basis, there's a clear-cut reflection of inequality in our examination pattern and education system. If we compare our education system or examination pattern, to be very precise, with other countries, though we followed British education system, but now European countries, North American countries, and other societies have transformed its education and examination pattern. But India is following the same. If we take example of Singapore emphasis on diverse skills. Singapore education system focuses on critical thinking, communication, and collaboration alongside academics, leading to well-rounded graduates. but we are not focusing. Also, there is a resistance to reforms. 17 states opted out of continuous and comprehensive evaluation system under RTE, Right to Education. The reintroduction of board exam at grade 5 and grade 8 is also there, right? Apart from these functional issues, there are certain structural issues as well. For example, there is a deficiency in state boards. We are lacking in terms of adequate staff and academic faculties. Also, these examination systems are creating mental health problems in our students. How? Mental health impact. A 2023 survey by the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences reported a 25% increase in student anxiety and depression related to exam. Also, NCRB data says in 2022, India saw over 1,600 student suicides with exam pressure cited as the major contributing factor. So, what could be the reforms? First, we need to shift to modular exams. Modular exams means type of exams which are focusing on 1 year curriculum and there is a possibility for re-examination. So, National Education Policy 2019 is wanted to shift to modular exam. There's a pilot study in Rajasthan showed a 15% increase in student engagement and 10% reduction in exam stress. Also, we need to improve teachers' quality. We need to improve pedagogic skills. We also need to improve the institutional functioning of boards. How? There is a need to improve the functioning of educational board by increasing the capacity through more recruitments, focusing on research and better means of evaluation, etc. We need to change our curriculum, which should be well suited for economy, which should increase the employability and which should decrease the mental stress. Also, we need to give more emphasis on fundamental concepts in subjects rather than rote memorization. We need to increase inquisitiveness. We need to increase innovation in our students. So, what could be the conclusion? Addressing the issues in the Indian examination system requires a multifaceted approach that includes changes in curriculum, teachers training, institutional functioning, and shift towards more holistic assessment approach. Next article is Supreme Court says murder of democracy, prosecute returning officer. Recently, Chandigarh mayor election was conducted, and in a video, it was showing that the returning officer was tampering with ballot votes given by some party members or some members, right? So it is raising concerns over the integrity of the whole election process. Why it's important? It talks about the election in India, role of elections in democracy, and there is a topic in GS paper 2, salient features of representation of People's Act, that we should consider. Let's understand the importance through previous year question. In 2017, UPSC asked this question. Consider the following statements. The Election Commission of India is a 5-member body. That is incorrect. Union Minister of Home Affairs decide the election schedule for the conduct of both general election and by-elections. The Election Commission resolves the dispute relating to splits merger of recognized political parties. So that is correct. Anyways, in mains exam 2015, UPSC asked this question. Discuss the role of Election Commission of India in the light of evolution of the Model Code of Conduct. What is context? Supreme Court condemned the action of returning officer in Chandigarh mayoral election as a mockery of democracy. What was the incident? During the Chandigarh mayoral election on 30th January 2024, the returning officer, by the way, who are returning officers? Returning officers are officers appointed by Election Commission, whether it's Election Commission of India or State Election Commission, to assess, monitor and oversee the whole election process. So they are the bureaucrats that Election Commission are selecting and appointing as returning officers. And even the candidates are filing their candidature to the returning officer. So that is why returning officers are important element in the election process. This returning officer allegedly invalidated 8 votes cast for one party candidate. This resulted in another party candidates winning the election by 4 votes. However, a video recording showed the returning officer seemingly marking certain ballot papers invalid in a suspicious manner. This raises concern over the integrity of the election system in India. But why election is important? Firstly, elections are giving legitimacy to the democratically elected government, right? Second, it is showing that the governments have popular sovereignty because it's working on the will of the people. It is also ensuring the accountability of the executive because after a particular period of time, let's suppose 5 years, the governments are being re-elected, the executives are being re-elected. And that is why it is enforcing the accountability in the executives. It is also ensuring political participation of the people into the political decision making of the country or the society. Also, it is also reflecting the public representation. It also representing the public will and emotions. What are the mechanisms that we place for maintaining the integrity of election process in India? Firstly, Election Commission of India. I am talking about general election at the central level or state level. This Election Commission of India is enshrined under Article 324 of Indian Constitution. So it is a constitutional body. Second, there is a security of tenure. The Election Commission of India is independent of the executive. It is not working on the pleasure of president. Rather, we have given security of tenure and it can be removed only the manner and the grounds as a Supreme Court judge can be removed. So, we have given security of tenure to Election Commission of India or Chief Election Commissioner of India, right? So, these are the basic ways through which we are trying to maintain the integrity of election process. Apart from this Election Commission of India, we have several other bodies, several other entities which are ensuring the integrity of election process in India. For example, judiciary. As we have seen in this case itself, the Supreme Court has came up with certain observation and direction, and the media. So, Election Commission of India, and this Election Commission of India also came up with certain schemes such as sweep. It's systematic voters education and electoral participation program just to improve the voters education and awareness, right? There is also an app, C Vigil app. It was brought up by Election Commission of India itself to report any kind of violation in the election process. Election Commission of India also brought electronic voting machine and VVPAT to prevent any mismanagement in case of ballot paper, right? There are also legal framework, for example, Representation of People Act 1950 and 1951 to maintain the integrity of election process. Certain technological innovations are also brought up by the Election Commission of India that we have seen, sweep program and C-Vigil. Also, there is a electoral roll management system was built by Election Commission of India to ensure the integrity of electoral rolls in India, right? Judicial oversight directly by the judiciary and civil society and media engagement to maintain the integrity of the election process. So we have discussed all important articles for today. Now let's do some practice questions. First question is, consider the following statements. The Representation of Peoples Act 1951 provides for the conduct of elections to the parliament and state legislatures. That is correct. Under the Act, political parties must register with the Election Commission of India to contest elections. This is also correct. The act prohibits public meetings during the period of 48 hours ending with the hour fixed for the conclusion of polling. That is also correct. So answer would be C part. Next question. Arrange the following Indian states in clockwise order, starting from clockwise order means like this, starting from the north that border Myanmar. So this is north, this is south, this is east, this is west, right? So Nagaland, Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, and Manipur. So 3142 would be correct answer. So A part would be correct answer. Which of the following steps under the fiscal policy would have a contractionary impact on the economy? So government making payments towards unemployment benefits. So government is giving money to the unemployed people. So it is increasing the demand and it is increasing the government expenditure. So it is not a contractionary, rather it's a expansionary. So this is incorrect statement. Second is making payments towards pensions for retired military personnel. This is also expansionary. Increasing the indirect taxes on the purchase of goods and services. That means we are decreasing the money in the hands of the people. That means it is contractionary, right? So this is the correct answer. Allocating more capital for spending on construction of national highways. That means investing more on infrastructure project. That is expansionary. So answer would be C part. Which of the following is not a keyword, not a key feature of the National Education Policy 2020? Introduction of 5+3+3+4 schooling. This is the feature. And question is asking for not. So this is not the correct answer. Abolition of board exams for grade 10 and 12. This is not the correct because we haven't abolished completely the grade 10 and 12 board exams. So this is the incorrect statement. So answer would be B part because it's asking for not a key feature. Increased focus on vocational education and skill development. This is the key feature. So it's not a right answer. Shift towards a flexible credit system, allowing students to choose their own pace. So this is the correct feature. So that is why it's not a correct option. Answer would be B part. Let's do some mains practice question. Assess the impact of ongoing civil war in Myanmar on the diplomatic and strategic relation between India and Myanmar. So we have to explain diplomatic relation as well as strategic relation. So under diplomatic relation, we have to explain the political impacts of this civil war on India and Myanmar relation. In strategic, we have to discuss social as well as economic impacts, right? Considering the historical context means our cultural relation plus India's stand so far and the current power dynamics. So we have to explain why this military coup or military regime is not capable to curb the ethnic conflicts, plus what is the role of China in these conflicts or these wars, right? So we have to start with the introduction and we have to outline the context of civil war in Myanmar briefly. Then we have to explain the historical relation between India and Myanmar along with cultural relation. Then we have to explain the strategic relation amidst this civil war, and in which we have to explain the social and economic issues that are associated with these conflicts or war, right? Specifically, we have to explain the economic and trade relation, the infrastructural projects that are being stalled because of these wars and conflicts. And lastly, we have to explain the diplomatic stance of India and the regional dynamics because of advent of China to this conflict, right? Lastly, we have to conclude by considering the future trajectory for India and Myanmar relation, right? So this is all for today. And now we are concluding our discussion. If you like our initiative, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.